Okay, let's do a bit of cleaning up on this rather sad looking vacuum motor. I know a lot of you will probably be asking why don't you scrap it for the copper and shit that's in the windings, but personally, vacuum motors are in short supply. This is probably the first vacuum cleaner I've seen in a couple of years now, so I kind of grab them and repair them when I can, but yeah. I'll sort of pull it apart and I'll actually show you how these work, because it's very complex, because they've got an impeller in here which draws air in the front and it spins around these edges and through cooling the motor and then out each of these holes here. I've got a bit of a cold at the moment still, but yeah, we'll probably first get that housing off, I reckon. Yeah. Well, here we go, there's the outer bell housing off. I suppose you call it a bell housing, but you can clearly tell it's not happy. There's a lot of what looks like feathers and hair in this thing. It's kind of bad, but anyway, you can tell this spins around at probably about 18,000 RPM, pulling air in the front, and it's throwing it off each of these edges through this gap here, which is hitting the outer housing, going around, and then through these ones here, out through the holes in the bottom. So this part is fixed while this part spins. It's in fact, I don't even think there's much brush left on it, considering how bad it is inside. They look pretty burnt. If I can get a bit of light in there. Yeah, it's not really showing up on the camera, but I'm gonna have to pull this entire thing apart to clean out that, but you'll probably see inside all that. It's yeah, pretty sad looking. Well, here's the brushes out of them. Now ignore the fact that that one's very rusty, but look what's happened to it. There's an actual piece missing out of this brush block, apart from the fact that it's completely scored up. That one's got a crack right about there. Something very bad happened to this vacuum motor long before it died. You can see there's actually an arc point on there, where it looks like it's actually been melting bits off this galvanized metal housing. That one, rust seems to have attacked it pretty badly. I think I'm going to have to replace both of these. As in, that's what they're supposed to look like. A little bit of scoring, that's just where it's lapped itself into the commutator of it. But that's what it's supposed to look like. That's what's happened to it. Something very bad's happened to this motor. Yeah, you can see there's a big score mark on that commutator bar there. I'll be very surprised if this thing works again. Yeah, this motor died a horrible death. Where's that brush block cleaned up? It's not as looking as nasty as it was before. Although you can clearly see the brush is actually split and jammed itself inside its metal enclosure. So what I'm going to try and do is pop this end off and pull a spring out and hopefully pull a brush out with it. But I'll just give it the same treatment as I gave the one that's already in there. I'll just cut it off. In fact, I've got the other stub there. Yeah, I'll just cut it off where it's down to the point where it's not broken, and file it to the shape of the lap. Just put it in. But yeah, I'll let it dry out a bit before I do that. Well, I got the brush holders cleaned up. The brush wasn't actually as stuck as it looked. I just had to knock its cap off and then push with a screwdriver all the way down the centre, and it came out fairly easily. But there's actually not as much missing on the outside as it looked, so it's not too bad. I'm going to take a chance and just leave that as it is. If anything, if stuff starts to come flying off when I start spinning it up, then I'll probably give it the same treatment as the other one, which was, like I said earlier, just cut the broken edge off and just stuff it back in. But yeah, I'll let it dry out a bit first, because I just put the whole thing in the tank just to let it sit, even with the brush in, and just let it remove the rust from it. And it actually worked really well. But Something that surprised me a bit is these ends, they look like they're brass, but it's actually brass plated steel, because these were covered in rust like the rest of it. But oh, that's what you get, cheap shit these days. You pay for, it's probably only cost about $15 or something at Aldi. I've seen them there dozens of times, and they just get used and do something silly like spin a brush and just get thrown out. In fact, so far the thing I've had the last the longest is actually the shredder. Despite the fact I've opened it up, the amount of abuse I've given it, it's lasted longer than anything else that we've gotten from Aldi. It's, yeah. Although it's not their fault, it's just cheap shit. It's what society wants these days, and it's really a pain in the ass, because as per usual, nothing's made properly anymore. Let's do a test on this thing. I've let it dry for a bit. I've just got a wire to the variac, and I haven't got the ground connected. And when I'm testing motors, I don't usually have it connected, because in case it is short, I don't want to blow the breaker. Oh, it works. Bloody noisy though. And it smells like a swimming pool. Really getting sparks flying on that combar. Well, it works, which is a good sign. Bad sign is though, I don't think that brush is going to last very long. I can already see sparks coming off it. Only at 60 volts. But, oh, good to know it works. Thanks for watching.